Hey, yo, everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing a retro review. Yes, retro, and that will be of X-Men issue number 1. Now, this is the 1991 famous best-selling X-Men issue number 1. And you're probably wondering, why am I doing a retro review of X-Men number 1? Well, the reason being is that because I'm going to be going into Marvel now, and I am going to pick up 3 titles from Marvel now, I figured it'd be a good chance to go back and read some of the older Marvel stories from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even today. For example, in addition to the X-Men comics that I did pick up, and mind you, even though we're reviewing X-Men issue number 1, I did get to read and buy issue number 2. I am also planning to pick up Fantastic Four after the Secret Wars, where She-Hulk joins the team. I'm a big She-Hulk fan. I also plan to continue and to pick up the current Captain American series that's gone on for, I think, 16 issues. I could be wrong. I was given issue number 1 for free. It doesn't matter me finding where I put it. It might be over there. But anyways, so I decided to go back and read some older Marvel stuff. I'm not gonna go crazy and get ridiculous runs of stuff, and I'm not gonna go out and get some of the more obscure characters like Cloak and Dagger, or even get minor characters like Gambit. I'm just gonna focus on some of the stuff that kind of interests me. Now, some of you are probably saying to yourself, or actually maybe none of you are, but you're probably saying, well, gee, Andrew, you said that you're not really a big fan of the X-Men, and you aren't going to be picking up any of the X-Men titles going into Marvel now. And you would be correct. However, I should correct you a little bit because, see, I am not an absolute non fan of the X Men, if that makes any sense. I actually liked the X Men back in the day. A lot of my fond memories with the X Men were from the 90s cartoon. I also loved Marvel vs. Capcom, and, well, the X Men were just cool back in the 90s. At least from the perception of a 9 to 10-year-old like I was. Geez, 1991, I had to be like 5. I think. Anyways, the fact of the matter remains is I did like the X-Men. The X-Men was a cool concept. Not only were they all different and unique, but they had different costumes, different powers, different personalities. And back in the day, I did love Wolverine. I don't care for him now. It's not that I hate Wolverine, but I just think he oversaturates the market. One could say that Batman does the same, but I forgive Batman a little bit more because, like Spider-Man, Batman and Spider-Man are the 2 characters I believe that no matter how much shit you throw out, they're gonna sell. And chances are the shit's gonna be good. 9 out of 10 times, a Batman and Spider-Man story are gonna be good. They are probably the most iconic characters right now from their respective companies. Spider-Man is really the representative of Marvel, and Batman is really now the representative of DC. Despite the fact that you could say Superman is the most iconic and popular superhero of all time, right now Batman and Spider-Man are the thing. And that's why they can kind of just shell out stuff like Batman, Batman Robin, Batman Inc., Batman Dark Knight, Spider-Man, Avenging Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker is the Amazing Spider-Man, and all this other stuff. It's just how it works. But see, the thing is with like characters like Wolverine, I just think he's oversaturated the market. He doesn't really have a great supporting cast, and he's not always utilized the way that I like. However, I will admit I do like the fact that Wolverine has kind of come full circle along with Cyclops, and they've gone from being kind of bickering teammates to Cyclops becoming the new Magneto-ish with his ideals, and Wolverine becoming the new Xavier with his ideals. It's nice character growth to see. And also, what's there not to like about Wolverine? He's a near indestructible, with the healing factor, mutant who has indestructible claws that tears through things. That's pretty freaking awesome. But hey, I'm focusing too much on Wolverine itself. There's other characters of the X-Men I like Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey. And although they may not be as prevalent now, although Cyclops did get consumed by the Phoenix Force, I still liked the X-Men back in the day. I really wish that they would just streamline the X-Men. There's too many of them. There's X-Men, X-Men Legacy, X-Men, Wolverine the X-Men, Astonishing X-Men, and then now the all-new X-Men. In addition to that, I think the roster has gone way too big. I'm under the impression that certain superhero team-up comics should be minimum on the roster. Like the current Justice League comic, I'd much rather them stay with just the core 7 members rather than bring anyone new in. It's cool if you have, like on the Justice League International and the Justice League of America, to have 9 million people. That's fine. But the core Justice League title should be of the big 7. That's one of the reasons why I like Fantastic Four, is with the exception of a few hiccups here and there, the Fantastic Four is, well, usually just the Fantastic Four. I know other than She-Hulk, there has been a few replacements here and there. Spider-Man himself has even joined the Fantastic Four, but it's nowhere as chaotic as the X-Men. X-Men are like the NWO. Eventually, everyone joins it. I'm not saying that's bad, it's just not something I prefer. So, because I have that bit of a nostalgic feeling towards the X-Men, I may not like them now, but I did like them back in the day. I wanted to see if, maybe the comic was as good as my nostalgic memories. Because there's one thing that I do remember about the 90s with Marvel. I did not like it. Yeah, the 90s are really where I jumped off of Marvel. I liked Marvel up until the late 90s, but I just didn't like 90s comics from the Marvel. Don't get me wrong, DC had its fair share of crappy 90s, but never did I look back at Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or the Justice League and say, boy, that stuff sucked. It was always good, solid stuff. Now, this is all a matter of perception and opinions, and I'm probably ranting on a little bit too much about it, but I just didn't like 90s Marvel. I thought it was way too extreme and out there, and sometimes a little over melodramatic. But hey, if there's any place to go to really experience the full frontalness of 90s, it would be X-Men. So, like I said, I did read X-Men issue number 2, but I'm not going to be reviewing it. I'm only reviewing issue number 1. And the reason why I didn't get anything else from the series is because I can't find issue 3 anywhere, and I don't feel like looking for it, and I really don't have enough motivation. I do understand that any opinions that I have of this particular issue does not reflect the entire 90s, especially the entire 90s of Marvel itself, but I will use it as a small basis. So, let's jump into X-Men issue number 1 and see exactly if it was ectastic. Yeah, I just made up that crappy word. Let's go for it. So basically, there's a little bit of background that you need to know going into X-Men number 1. See, despite the fact that I'm not a big Marvel fan, I try to keep up on the general mythos and history of the characters and teams. And for a time, the X-Men was actually not led by Charles Xavier, but led by Magneto. And the X-Men actually grew to like Magneto. However, eventually, good old Charles came back, and Magneto kind of buggers off. This issue is really dealing with the fallout, for lack of a better term, of Magneto with the X-Men. Magneto is becoming increasingly more uninterested in the human race. He only cares about the mutants, and so thus he has Asteroid M, and he basically makes Asteroid M its own sovereign nation, and all mutants can come here, but hey, Magneto has to be incredibly pissed off anyways, and go down and get some nuclear warheads and threaten the Earth, because, he's kind of evil. Kind of. That's the interesting thing that I always saw with Magneto is he's not truly evil. He's just another side of the coin for Professor Xavier. It's kind of like how I said earlier, Cyclops and Wolverine are the opposite sides of the same coin right now. They have different opinions and different perceptions on how the world works, especially towards mutants. And I think that's the same thing with Charles Xavier and Magneto. Neither one of them are bad, they're just the complete extreme of each other. One is lawful, one is chaotic. One is very proactive, the other one not so much. More reactive than anything, and that would be Charles. So, in saying that, he picks up the warheads, and the X-Men have to go out and stop him, and fights ensues in the end of the issue. And that's basically the full issue itself. So we might as well get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Although 99.9% of people probably have this issue, so I really shouldn't even say whether or not you should get it. Anyways, good. What I did like about this is, one, they had a training session in the very beginning, which was kind of a way to reintroduce us to the new X-Men team. The art was pretty good. It was done by Jim Lee. Mind you, it is 90s Jim Lee. I said this before and I'll say again, Jim Lee's my favorite artist. But the one thing I like about Jim Lee is that he's grown and gotten better over the years. His 90s stuff, while good, is nowhere as good as his stuff now in the 2000 teens. I don't know, what are we calling ourselves now? The teens again? Whatever. Anyways, the art was pretty good, except for a few areas here and there. And it did have its classic 90ness, like the big teeth or the hips going to one side, or just the really ridiculous poses. I did like Magneto in this, although at times he was a little over melodramatic. But I do like the fact that he created Asteroid, well, not created, but made Asteroid M its own sovereign nation, a sanction for mutants, and he wasn't so bad as just kind of angsty. Now on to the bad. Number one, I felt as though the X-Men were all kind of idiots in this, with the exception of Rogue. They were way too quick to go and attack Magneto. Granted, he did have nuclear warheads and he was planning on using them. They just wanted to dice him up. Rogue's the only one that actually had any sense to try to talk to Magneto and try to talk him out of it. Magneto is not the Joker. Magneto is not a psychotic maniac who is unstable. He's an intellectual individual who is willing to resort to diplomacy when necessary. Actually, I like to think Magneto likes to talk a lot. The guy loves to hear himself think and speak and talk and have his monologues and his speech. And really, I don't see why you can't just talk to him and try to find a peaceful solution. And talking about monologuing and, well, talking in general, the comic is way too wordy. The amount of dialogue in this really takes away from any fast pace. I felt as though it was actually a very slow issue, and it was a struggle to go through because I'm just sitting there going, okay, okay, we get it, Magneto. Uh huh, yep. You have a stick up your ass. Okay. It was a little bit too wordy for my own liking. The last thing I didn't care about is, and this is a minor thing, mind you, is that in this, Wolverine goes head on with Magneto. I can understand Wolverine was a little bit more of a berserker back in the day, but he wasn't idiotic. I just laugh at any time that Wolverine and Magneto get into a fight because it should be an instant win for Magneto. Boom, Wolverine, you lost your skeleton. Actually, Magneto is accredited for removing the adamantium from Wolverine's body, which I believe caused him to become Pirate Wolverine. Yeah, Wolverine with the bandana. Eventually, he got his adamantium back via Apocalypse, becoming the Horseman Death. I don't know. That's whatever. But the thing is really Wolverine, he fights Magneto, and Magneto doesn't blow him to pieces. I would love to see a comic where Magneto just uses Wolverine as his weapon. Because you got to think about this. The adamantium is indestructible. And in addition to that, Wolverine has a healing factor. Magneto can just throw him around and Wolverine would never die. Putting all those things aside, X-Men issue number 1 wasn't bad at all. It was actually a pretty decent issue, but it was definitely a 90s comic. It doesn't make me want to compel and read and go on more and more with the X-Men. While I did pick up issue 2, I picked it up along with issue 1. It's not like I picked up issue 1 and I said, shit, I gotta get issue number 2. No, I just kind of got issue number 2 because it was there, and it was really cheap. And in no way, shape, or form do I say the 90s X-Men were bad, but it's the 90s. A lot of people love the 90s. I didn't so much. Although some good stories did come from it, I didn't so much. So, X-Men issue number 1, I give a 3 out of 5. And with that said, I'm going to end this retro review here. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.